and the Palestinian, where they can start building in full confidence, just society. But the gas field also has these significant geopolitical implications.
Yeah. Simon, thank you so much for your time as always. And of course, we have run out of time, but thank you. The Executive Director of the Handy Concept for Connecting People global think tank, Simon Alain Handy, there speaking to us. He's also a former visiting fellow at the European Union Institute for Security Studies. We're out of time. And of course, just a quick one coming through. The Justice Committee has recommended that both Judge President John Hlophe and Judge Mutata be removed from judicial office. And I'm sure news will carry that story. That's where we'll leave it. Thanks for your participation and thanks to the production team. Time for news with Luyanda Mahome.
Independent and impartial. This is SAFM News.
Thank you, Sakina. In your top stories, Parliamentary Committee rejects submission from EFF MPs. An investigating officer grilled in the Senzo Meiwameda trial. This is SAFM News. A very good afternoon. The Powers and Privileges Committee has rejected an EFF letter from its legal team to find them not guilty. The letter written by EFF leader Julius Malema on behalf of the party and 6 affected MPs was read by the initiator, Advocate Anton Katz. The committee argued that the 6 MPs decided not to be part of the hearing when they walked out on Monday. In the letter, Malema says the video that was presented as part of the evidence for the hearing was not authenticated and their right to freedom of expression was trumped. Malema says there is no evidence that the Speaker, the NCOP chairperson and President Cyril Ramaphosa were threatened. The hearing took place in absentia with the committee deliberating on the sanctions to be meted out against the MPs. This is part of Malema's 14-page letter that was read out to the committee by Katz.
Some of the members who assaulted EFF members carried guns on them. 29.2. No case was made out that the conduct in issue amounts to misconduct as per the charges. No case was made out about the threats experienced by the Speaker, the Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces and the President. No case was made out there had been a breach of the rules. And the conclusion in paragraph 30 from Mr. Malema is, we submit that the committee should find the EFF not guilty on the evidence presented and on the common cause facts. Signed, Julius Malema MP, and that's page 14.
COSATU has welcomed Parliament's decision to pass the two-pot retirement system, allowing one withdrawal per year prior to retirement. South Africans will now be able to access 10% of their pensions from the 1st of March 2024. Despite National Treasury's proposals to further delay the implementation to 2025, the committee motivated that the implementation should not be delayed. COSATU parliamentary spokesperson Matthew Parks says although there's a lot of work to do before then, this option will provide relief to workers drowning in debt.
Parliament, both houses, needs to pass the legislation before they rise in a few weeks' time. The President needs to sign it. There needs to be regulations promulgated by Treasury. SARS must put in place some system adjustments. And the pension funds too must also put in place their work. It's going to be quite tight, but nonetheless I think it's worth it. And this is a very popular legislation that's going to help give relief to many workers who are just struggling to survive. But also what makes us have comfort is that it's going to benefit the pension funds too, because it's going to help preserve them in the longer term whilst giving workers access to limited portions when they need some help.
Chief Economist at Investec, Annabel Bishop, says while the rise in inflation may be a concern for the Reserve Bank, it is unlikely to hike interest rates when it makes its announcement tomorrow. Her comments come after the data released by Stats SA showed that the annual consumer price inflation increased for the third consecutive month from 5.4% in September to 5.9% in October. Bishop says higher food and fuel prices were the main drivers of inflation in October.
The key drivers were fuel, transport costs, and food prices. Looking forwards, CPI inflation is not expected to see another large print next month as fuel prices fell in the month of November, which should provide some moderation in the CPI inflation outlook. However, the MPC meets tomorrow, and of course this elevated inflation figure will concern the South African Reserve Bank. Its inflation forecasts are more elevated than those in the markets for 2024, so it should not necessarily change its outlook, but the South African Reserve Bank is likely to remain hawkish, and while the risk of an interest rate hike does remain for tomorrow, it is not widely expected.
An investigating officer in the Senzo Meiwameda case, Sergeant Batu Mogola, has testified in the High Court in Pretoria that accused number 1 Muzi Sibiya informed her that he was assaulted. Mogola, however, told the court that the claims could not be verified. Mogola is answering questions under cross-examination in a trial within a trial to establish the admissibility of alleged confession statements made by the accused. 5 men are on trial for the murder of the Bafana Bafana captain who was shot dead in October 2014. Defense lawyer Advocate Thulani Mngomezulu is questioning Mogola about the events that unfolded after Sibiya's arrest in 2020.
At some stage in Tembisa Court, accused number 1 indicated that to the presiding officer, he requested that he should be detained in prison because he was assaulted when he is kept at the police stations. Can you dispute that?
That's correct, my lord, and I can only see the accused assaulted by SAPS Silverton. When, my lord, he made these submissions at Tembisa Court, my lord, I also made follow-up, my lord, in Silverton police station to find out who were the police officers, my lord, who were assaulting him, my lord, at Silverton police station. And, my lord, there's no one, my lord, who could confirm, my lord, that
City Power says Eskom's implementation of Stage 4 load shedding imposes serious challenges on its staff and customers. This after Eskom ramped up load shedding to Stage 4 early this morning until further notice. The power utility says this is due to insufficient emergency reserves and generation capacity as a result of 4 units not returning to service as planned. City Power spokesperson Isaac Mangena says Stage 4 load shedding will put a strain on their resources and staff.
Means that our customers will have to endure more episodes of blackouts. While we have resolved the problem of the frequent 2-hourly outages through the new load shedding schedule that we have adopted, it may be encountered as the stages go higher as it is currently. The same as the midnight overlapping 4 hours from 2200 hours to around 2 a.m., which the system see as 2 separate days with minimal interruptions as it happens during the midnight when people are asleep.
And finally, Johannesburg Emergency Services has warned the public to take precautions during an expected heat wave from today until Friday. Joburg EMS spokesperson Robert Molaudzi says they are on high alert and ask residents to call the emergency center for any life-threatening emergencies.
Residents are urged to stay hydrated, drink lots of water. Residents are also urged to stay away from direct sunlight, especially between 11 and 3 in the afternoon. Those residents who are working directly into the sunlight are urged to take regular breaks, as exposure to these extremely hot temperatures can lead to heat exhaustion, heat cramps, which might also lead to heat stroke.
Recapping your top story, the Powers and Privileges Committee in Parliament has rejected an EFF letter from its legal team to find them not guilty. For SAFM News, I am Luyanda Maume. Headlines at 1:30.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide. Leading the conversation.
Mzansi, we thank you for what you did yesterday, today, and what you will do tomorrow to meet your tax obligations. By submitting your income tax returns on time and keeping your personal and banking information up to date, you have made your tax matters daily matters. Our gratitude as SARS is immeasurable. We thank you for contributing to our country's prosperity. Visit sars.gov.za to keep your details updated. Your tax matters. SARS at your service.
When business challenges rise, so do we. Because hey, kuningi. Luckily, Bidvest Bank is a bank built out of business. So, customizable services come naturally. And once we get to know you, your ambitions, and the seasons of your business, we can tailor the efficiencies and solutions that help turn your income into the outcome your business needs. Visit bidvestbank.co.za to learn more. Bidvest Bank. Banking built for your business. An authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
This special acknowledgement goes to Hollywood Bets.
Your heartwarming support gave millions of South Africans a thrilling experience during the Rugby World Cup France 2023.
The vibration that moved the nation.
Salute Hollywood Bets.
Brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
umfana omuhle igama lakhe Thando lwethu benimthanda endithanda sasingohlulwa nazi izidumbu wayophula inhliziyo yam ndingamcingelanga wayophula inhliziyo yam ndingamlindelanga wethando lwethu wethando lwethu ndaweza mina thando lwethu ndaweza mina thando lwethu Lediqhelele bendicinga ukuba ndizohlala nawe bonke bendingazi bendicinga ukuba ungowam kanti ungowethu sonke wayophula inhliziyo yam ndingacingelanga wayophula inhliziyo yam ndingakulindelanga wethando lwethu wethando lwethu ndaweza mina thando lwethu ndikuxelele nje thando lwethu ukuba kuwe ndiphelele ndakwenza mina thando lwethu wayophula inhliziyo yam wayophula inhliziyo yam ibo thando lwethu thando lwethu
It is Beretta coming through with Utando Lwetu. That is how we open up the show this afternoon. Apparently, it is a Love Wednesday, as according to my team. I'm sure, but we'll go with it. We'll go with it for the purposes of, bonding and community appreciation. We'll go with it. That is how we open up today's show. It is scorching hot in Johannesburg. Oh my gosh, Likipa Ukov HN, Aikisho Uti, what is happening in your corner of the country? I'm presuming that we are more or less all feeling the same kind of heated temperatures. Coming up on the show today, we are looking at a study that was done about how Ubuntu offers lessons in treating people with disabilities with inclusivity or inclusion and fairness. And we'll catch up with the fellow who undertook this study and unpack some of her findings. Also coming up, we are in conversation with a young entrepreneur today, the founder and creative director of Negritude Jewelry. She will be joining us, and they make custom-made African-inspired jewelry. So she's coming through for Made in SA. On the other side of 2 o'clock, and this is where the love factor comes in, we are looking at Black Love today, a dialogue for brothers and sisters that's titled Between Rejection and Recognition. We'll find out more from my guest on the other side of 2 o'clock. And of course, it is a Wednesday, which means that we're going to wrap up the show with Ntsiki Mkhize. Let's take a quick break here, but our lines are open on 0614104107. That is our WhatsApp line if you'd like to send through a WhatsApp voice note or a message, or 086 000 2032 is the number you can use to call.
Ford is turning 100, and there's never been a better time to buy a brand new Ford. We're giving away 100 vouchers worth an amazing 50,000 Rand each, and the sensational grand prize of us paying for one lucky winner's Ford. It's the celebration of the century. Visit a Ford dealer, buy a new Ford, and win. T&Cs apply.
Open the Absa Cash Invest Tracker account and earn the best rates in the market, more than the top 10 money market funds' average returns. Enjoy unmatched advantages at an interest rate of 8.9% per annum. Plus, if you open your account today, you could win your share of 15 million Rand in luxury travel experiences for two. Yes, you heard right. A trip for you and your partner. My bank does that. Open yours today in less than 5 minutes on the banking app, at your nearest Absa branch, or consult your private banker or call 0860 111 515. Absa is an authorized FSP and a registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
Catch the Insider SA this Monday evening at 6 as hip-hop star Kiddo CSA taps into the spirit of Africa.
So it's so inspirational.
Tenor Luvo Maranti and Lady Linda Davies join forces
to help young talents to be seen in the world.
And lending his bark to the campaign against bullying, canine celebrity Mr. Miyagi is a ferocious force for good. That's the Insider SA, Monday at 6. Repeat Saturday at 12 p.m. and Sunday morning at 10:30 on S3.
Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
It is the full circle, and we're going to get into a conversation interrogating how perhaps Ubuntu offers lessons in how to treat people with disabilities. And this is on the back of a study of the Bomvana rituals as conducted in the Eastern Cape by a postdoctoral fellow at the Africa Center for HIV and AIDS Management at the Stellenbosch University. Nomvu Dwatwa Henda joins me on the line now. How are you doing, Nomvu?
Oh, hello. I'm doing well, Bridget, and how are you?
I am fantastic, thank you. Perhaps as a starting point, let's understand what informed and motivated your interest in this particular study.
Oh, okay. Well, I grew up in a home where Ubuntu and the indigenous way of life was practiced. And my home was a go-to home by people who were coming from the Eastern Cape, because my father used to help people with their passes because it was during the pass laws. And they would stay at our home and we befriended them as we were kids growing up, and we learned a lot about the indigenous way of life. Even though when growing up now I was in the township, that way of life remained with me because it was practiced in my home. Yeah.
And tell me this, Nombo, you then undertook to study a very particular village and a particular tribe within the Eastern Cape. Why focus on the Amabomvane? What is it about that particular grouping that for you was of interest?
Oh, they are a special group of people. I've always heard about Amabomvana. And some of the Bomvana people, by the way, did stay at home because there were about 2 to 3 shacks within the household. And it was occupied, those households, those shacks were occupied by the Bomvana people. You could see when some of the Bomvana people from the hostels were visiting them, they had a very particular way of doing things. Now, fast forwarding to my PhD, you know, when you do a PhD, it has to be innovative. It has to be special. You have to come up with something new, something which can wow people. So when discussing the topics with my supervisor, she came up with this idea because originally she's from that side. And then I bought into the idea because it took me back to my childhood when the Bomvana people stayed with us as well. And then I had to go down to Wabomvana for the first time in my life. And when I got there, I saw this beautiful picturesque environment with numerous rolling hills, with meadows, with rivulets, with rivers where bushes and trees grow. It is a special place. Not to mention, there are people who still hold to the traditional way of life. Yes.
And in terms of the study's findings and focus, and of course, like you said, the study interrogated health, wellness, and how it all inclusivity within how it all intersected within these particular people, the Mbomvana, and of course with peoples with disabilities. But what were some of the key findings for you that came from the study?
Oh wow! You know, Amabomvana, I've always known its disability from a township or an urban perspective, because my understanding of disability was more of Western influenced. But now, having to learn about its disability from indigenous people, it was mind-blowing. First of all, I want to mention that what this study is contributing, its contribution, it is making its disability understood differently in indigenous communities, whereby most of the time the Western thought comes up with a different perspective of disability, where disability is made most of the time, and according to the articles that I read during my literature review, disability appeared to be a person's problem. And coming up with terms such as disablement, terms that carry a derogatory term, so to speak, whereby a person feels like unfortunate. It is seen most of the time as a misfortune. But now I came to learn its disability from a new perspective, whereby from the Bomvana perspective, the way disability is conceptualized, it is influenced by their spirituality, because Amabomvana are deeply spiritual people. People who believe strongly in their ancestors as a way of life, because their way of life is totally different to other Xhosa groups, although broadly you can say we share the same things, we share the same culture, but the manner in which they do things is totally different, because, you know, the definitions of disability in the disability scholarship is totally different to what Amabomvana are saying, because to the Bomvana people, the environment is linked to their everyday life. The living and the non-living beings, they influence their understanding and their interpretation of life. Hence, to them, disability is characterized by respect for life and sensitivity, including human dignity.
I also wanted to ask you, Nomvo, and I'm glad you touch on that. Amabomvana are, though by extension are Xhosa, but they are almost like a subsect of Xhosa culture. Because I wanted to ask you, Uti, by extension then, how does Xhosa culture interact with disability, and is it vastly different from what you've observed and consequently studied with the Abamomvana?
I need to explain this. Amabomvana are also a group of the Xhosa. Remember, the Xhosa people are a nation. A nation with different groups such as Amabhaca, Amamfengu, Abathembu, and so forth, with Amabomvana being one of them.
I see.
But when doing my study, you know, I had to know who are the Bomvana, by the way. Actually, who are these people called Amabomvana? What sustained them to still hold strongly to these practices, their cultural practices? If I may take you back, Amabomvana during the time of Unongause, I don't know if you know, the false prophetess.
Yes.
Unongause, who told us people to kill their cattle. Amabomvana are one group I know that never killed their cattle. So they kept their livestock. They didn't kill their cattle. As a result, there is a type of breed called Bolowana. Once you mention Bolowana, it's a type of cattle breed from the Bomvana people, which they believe in times of famine, in times of struggle, in times of difficulties, that cattle in a chief's house, it would be slaughtered. Only men would be involved. Not everybody was allowed to eat that type of cattle. So that type of, they say to me, after that has been done and they followed certain rituals with that slaughtering of Upolowan, things would come back to normal. That is the story I was told by the Bomvana people. So Amabomvana have their special way of doing things to an extent that the rituals, Xhosa rituals, which we also do as other Xhosa groups, but you find them in KwaBomvana done in a very special way. For instance, I'm sure you've heard of when a child is born, and then there's a time where Imbeleko is done, there's the slaughtering of a goat to introduce that child to the ancestors. We call it, as many Xhosa groups, Imbeleko. Amabomvana don't call it Imbeleko. They call it Ukuqatwa. Because as Amabomvana, these are the people who still put on their red blankets and beautiful red ochre and so on. The child puts the ochre from the face to the body up until his feet. And the mother also puts it on the face and the leg. So that process of ukuqaywa is the introduction of the child to that. It's a birth ritual which is very important to the Bomvana people and which is done in every household at KwaBomvana. Because by that ritual, they also cement the child to its roots.
Let's hold it there for a second as we go to the headline news, and then we'll come back on the other side of this. Luyanda patiently standing by to bring us the 1:30 headlines.
Good afternoon, Bridget. In your headlines, the Eskom board says it has developed a plan to have an energy availability factor of at least 65% by the first quarter of next year. Chairperson of the board, Mteto Nyati, says there's an urgency to produce energy optimally to eliminate load shedding. The Powers and Privileges Committee has rejected an EFF letter from its legal team to find them not guilty. The letter, written by EFF leader Julius Malema on behalf of the party and 6 affected MPs, was read out by initiator Advocate Anton Kurtz. And Kenya's Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua says the national government will not provide funds for flood response efforts as the country battles one of its worst floods in recent years. The announcement comes after the governor of Mombasa, one of the counties most impacted by the ongoing floods, disputed Gachagua's earlier claim that the government had sent counties 10 billion Kenyan shillings for flood response. I'll have details on these and other stories at 2.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
We are in conversation with a postdoctoral fellow at the Africa Center for HIV/AIDS Management at the Stellenbosch University. Nomvo Dwadwa Hende is joining me. And for her PhD in health sciences rehabilitation, she spent a few years studying the experiences of people with disabilities when they underwent Xhosa rituals and traditions. And part of her inquest was wanting to know how rituals contribute to health and wellness. And of course, as you heard during the first half of our conversation, much of this time was spent in preoccupation with a very unique Xhosa grouping known as the Amabomvana. And she joins me now to further expand on some of her findings. Let's jump on this. A large part of your focus obviously was wanting to know how rituals contributed to health and well-being, but particularly of peoples with disabilities. And yes. What did you find in that regard? We were having this conversation with my producers, and I was just reflecting back as, a Zulu / Swazi Tsonga young lady, but who was raised within the Zulu culture. And for me, I was like, I don't know if my Nguni rituals exhibit any kind of discriminatory positioning or any kind of biases towards peoples with disabilities. But then yet again, perhaps I don't know as deeply about all of my rituals as one should.
Well, with Amabomvana, based because their governance, Ubuntu, that is why my study is centralized around Ubuntu. Ubuntu, we know that it's an African philosophy which promotes the common good of society and includes humanness, where each person is an integral part of society. Amabomvana do just that. They don't see a person as a standalone. And to the Bomvana, persons with disabilities are not seen to differ from the norm, as the Western culture often does. Amabomvana see people with disability as belonging to them, because during this study, I came up with a model or a framework which is based on their worldview. Because when you study people of the South, this is what I have learned throughout this study, you have to take into consideration the factors that affect them. There are factors that affect Africans differently to non-Africans, which most of the time impact on how people conduct themselves. So these factors play a role in how they deal or interpret their situation, even that of disability. Amabomvana, when they do a ritual, they see a person first as a human being. Because Amabomvana are deeply ingrained in their rituals and traditions, they believe that when they stand before their ancestors and do the rituals, a person has to conduct himself respectfully. Failing to do so, your ritual will not be accepted by your ancestor. And because of that, they know that if they reject one of their own, be it a person with disability or whatever, they also will be rejected. So that is the norm among Amabomvane people. That is why they have that deep love for persons with disabilities. And they often say, if you give birth to a child with a disability, we don't see disability here. There's no disability here. Those were the themes, Bridget, that came up. They would ask me, what do you mean by disability? Because we see a human being here. Everything we do, that person does. And you cannot, the elders, the elderly women and the elders of the villages told me, you cannot do a ritual for your child who does not have disability and leave that one. And leave that one with a disability. Or else it's just a waste of money and you're slaughtering because your ritual will be rejected. You do the same. The elderly women told me even when they send their daughters for Intonjane, the female puberty rite, and there is another one with a disability, they send them together because when you do that ritual, you can send 4 girls at a time. And because you do not want that one to be neglected. Yes, now something very crucial that came up through my studies among the themes that came up, which I learned from the Bomvana people. It was like I was in a college because I was learning new things. They said to me, remember this number, the soul is not disabled. And I looked up in shock when they said that. They said the soul, when we do these rituals for the people, the ancestors work in the soul of the person. Therefore, the soul is not disabled. Disability is like a blanket any other soul is wearing. Did you know that? I didn't know that before. They said it's like a blanket that you throw on your shoulder. It's not the actual person. So the Amabomvane see the soul of the person as the person, not the body.
And I think that is a beautiful note for us to wrap it up on here today, because I think it surmises the point and the crux of your research, the notion of opportunities for us to learn, the notion for us to perhaps interrogate our own languaging and our own perceptions around peoples with disabilities, and of course to center ourselves around consciously being inclusive and non-biased. As you so rightfully say, the takeaway for me and for everyone listening is just always remember that the soul is not disabled. Nomvo Hende, thank you so much for the time this afternoon. That was Nomvo. She's a postdoctoral fellow at the Africa Center for HIV/AIDS Management at the Stellenbosch University. It's 22 at 2 o'clock. Let's take a quick break here and then we come back and we get into Made in SA.
November. So much no in November. Can we just squeeze this last job in? No. Feeling pumped, guys? No. Will we ever make it to December? No. It's November. So, we're charging no fees for 6 months when you sign up for a 10x retirement product in November. No fees, no drama, just results. Speak to a retirement expert today. 10x your future. 10x is a licensed FSP. T's and C's apply.
Rand Water is concerned about the significant increase of water consumption in its areas of supply. The increase in water consumption is putting severe strain on Rand Water's distribution network. To save water, please do not wash your cars with hose pipes. Use buckets. Water your garden with sprinklers between sunset and sunrise. Do not wash your pavements with hose pipes. Use brooms. Repair your leaking taps. Cover your swimming pools to avoid quick evaporation. Shower instead of bathing in a tub.
This message is sponsored by Rand Water in partnership with City of Joburg, City of Ekurhuleni, and City of Tshwane.
Nottingham Forest welcome their visitors, Brighton and Hove Albion, with warm hands, but insist the valuable 3 points will remain at City Ground.
And you makes it first time, it's a brilliant goal! Elanga hits it!
However, the Seagulls are not willing to part ways with maximum points, as they prefer a position in the top half.
The dinger is in, what a run, what a goal!
This is the Premier League. Catch the glittering clash between Nottingham Forest and Brighton and Hove Albion on Saturday, 25 November at 4 p.m. live on S3. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. #We love it here. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game!
SAFM values your views. Be an active citizen.
It is the full circle on SAFM. It's time for us to have a look at these custom-made African-inspired jewelry for Made in SA.
Made in SA with Bridget Masinga.
I love all things, proudly produced in South Africa and by extension Africa, but also have the flair of excellence and finesse to them. And this brand is one such. It's a curated offering of handmade jewelry using mixed mediums that echo an Africa of antiquity. And it's a continuation of the Negritude movement, inspired by those who've come before and walk with us in the now. We've got founder and creative director of Negritude Jewelry, Faith Baloy. How are you doing, Faith?
I'm good, thank you. How are you, Bridget?
I'm fantastic. Firstly, I just want to make sure that, I was saying to my producer, Negritude, is it a combination of words? Am I putting the right emphasis on the right syllable?
Yeah, no, Negritude, you're saying it exactly the way it is. It came about in the 1930s, so this is a continuation. It's an adaptation. Was a francophone movement, literary, and then I turned into an aesthetic kind of reversion to making jewelry based on the same ethos, which is a sum total of all things African.
Oh, we live to learn every day. So and I guess to the essence of what I said about it being an echo of an Africa of antiquities, combinations of all cultures.
Absolutely, because remember in antiquity we didn't have borders, and there was a lot of kind of crossover in influences in everything, cultural and in everything that's expressive and creative. So with what I do is it's assemblage. So what I've been doing this since 2011. And I would kind of see gorgeous bits and bobs and beads and amulets, some with meaning, from all over the continent. And some very kind of mimetic of things that have evolved that we see down here in South Africa now. And I thought, wow, what if I did like a combination of everything? So you'll find it like one piece. There's a bead from East Africa, plus one from North, plus one from West, and one from here. And then also merging that with the story that's behind it.
And what I love about that is that it holds identity for all, but identity for none, all at the same time, because it can't be placed to a particular region or a particular people.
Absolutely, that's exactly it. It's a kind of collective celebration of what it means to be African, and it's an offering from of what Africa in an imagined way may have looked like a very, very long time ago, and how people wore their identities and how people express themselves.
Now, I can imagine when one does jewelry like this, which endears itself to so many, that there's obviously an element of a lot of research that goes into it. Because if you go onto your page, it almost every piece lends itself to you wanting to find out its backstory.
That's exactly it. I mean, I think when it started, it was very, this is 2011, so there was less access, there wasn't really that much social media and all that. And it was usually me being around a lot of traders who live in South Africa and come in and out from all parts of Africa. And obviously they're carrying their stories and their amulets, which hold a lot of folklore, and meaning. And I was always very impressed by it. When I say it's a collective ensemble of knowledge that come from everywhere on the continent, I've been taught a lot of the stuff by people that I've collided with who came and said, oh, I remember this bead, I grew up with it, it used to mean this and this and this. And literally over the years, that's how the collection happened.
I love it. From a materials perspective, the actual hardware that we're using, am I correct in saying a lot of natural materials, coppers, leathers?
Absolutely. And also, I've got something called Craft Your Story, because it's assemblage jewelry, which is the oldest way of making jewelry. It just needs imagination. And, a bit of leather, a bit of a bead, a bit of this, and maybe something quite memorable for you that you keep, and then you put it together and you can wear it. It's wearing a story. So I chose to go with antique brass, just to celebrate the whole kind of golden era reference to it. So it's antique brass and it's oxidized, which makes it like vintage looking. So it's almost like you're exhuming treasure and old wisdom.
I see. But with that also, for someone listening, the other thing that I don't know if I'm getting across is that there's also a delicateness to your pieces, because I think sometimes when people think, African jewelry, they think chunky, bold, heavy, but these are quite delicate, petite, refined, finessed, individual pieces of jewelry.
I know, right? It kind of came to me like that. It was not a deliberately thought out thing like, okay, how do I look different? I'm going to make everything. That's literally what came to me, and that's what I delivered. So that's literally the expression in its true sense, yeah.
Love it. And of course, for anyone that is listening to us, give us the pertinent details. Christmas is around the corner, so I know people are already exploring what to buy for people. And this could be a lovely thing to add underneath the Christmas tree if you believe in putting gifts underneath the Christmas tree. But details, ease of access?
Okay, wonderful. So online store, www.negritude.co.za. You can get through to the store through Instagram and Facebook, but also I'm at the Linden Market, so great timing. The huge festival for the end of the year is the Linden Market this weekend at the Emiratia Dam or Botanical Gardens.
Yeah.
And they'll be showcasing this, so there'll be a great pop-up for people who want to do some Christmas shopping.
Lovely stuff. Faith, thank you so much for the time today. That was Faith, founder and creative director of Negritude Jewelry. And you heard you can find them online at negritude.co.za. That's Negritude as we say it, is exactly how you spell it. And of course, this coming weekend, she said, the Linden Market in Emiratia, if you happen to be in our side of town, she will be there so that you could maybe have a look and a touch and a feel of all the pieces and see if one or two can't find their way into your collection. That was a Made in SA for this week. It's fast approaching 10 to 2 o'clock. Time for us to get into Kids Corner, which will take us to the top of the hour. And then Luyanda is coming through with your 2 o'clock news.
Eskom understands that electricity is an integral part of running a business. However, electricity demand is currently higher than supply, and energy efficiency is critical. Businesses are encouraged to reduce consumption between 7 a.m. and 6 p.m. by not leaving electrical equipment on standby mode, as well as turning off unnecessary lighting. We can reduce load shedding by working together. Every kilowatt counts.
It all comes together with a great partnership.
Thank you for demonstrating that indeed you are proudly South African.
Africa Borwa witnessed a great Rugby World Cup France 2023 because of your incredible support.
Great friends, great prize, and great sport.
Asibonge Kasalaga. Brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
SAFM invites you to our inaugural public lecture, delivered by the former Chief Justice Mogoeng Mogoeng. The theme of the lecture is constitutionalism and upholding the rule of law in South Africa. Has corruption and malfeasance eroded the moral fabric of the democratic dispensation? The lecture will take place on the 29th of November 2023 at the SABC M1 Studios in Johannesburg. Secure your seat by emailing us at info@safm.co.za.
SAFM, leading the conversation.
SAFM has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech, or contain violence or explicit sex. If you think we are not living up to that code, then you can inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. PO Box 142365. Craig Hall 2024. Fax to 011-326-3198 or an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide.
This program is brought to you by SABC Education, enriching minds, enriching lives.
Good day, everyone. My name is Mayana. Today I'm going to be talking about giving out of my goodwill. What I enjoy about giving out of my goodwill is that I bless people and I make their day. Some things I give out of my goodwill are some old clothes or some toys. I feel very happy and I feel very blessed. I also feel like a hero when giving things to other people. I expect everyone to give something to someone and make their day. Thank you for listening. Bye for now. See you next time.
My name is Kapiamba. My son is Zanabo and I'm 12 years old. I enjoy giving food to the homeless people. I plan on visiting family. I think it is important to give out because it's a sign of kindness. I feel good after giving out food. Thank you for listening.
Hello, my name is Malindle. I enjoy giving anything I can. I've planned to give out clothes. I think this is so we can learn to share with others. I feel proud of myself.
Hello everyone, my name is Juliet Angluv. I'm 12 years old and I go to Mokoli House School. I really enjoy giving people homemade cards because that's how I thank them or congratulate them, etc. I have a plan where I will buy cute bags filled with chocolate that are Christmas themed. I don't yet know who I'll give them to. I think that as children, we should give because that's how we show that we are grateful for everything that we have. After I give from the greatness of my heart, I feel very happy.
Hi everyone, my name is Ashley Kavamba. What I enjoy giving to people out of my goodwill is anything I could possibly give to someone. During this upcoming festive season, I am planning to give all the clothes and shoes I don't wear anymore, and this will be without my parents having to force me. I think as children, you should give mainly because it feels nice to give. It shows how kind-hearted you are too. Honestly, the feeling I get after giving from the goodness of my heart is something I can't describe because it's a feeling that makes me feel extremely proud and happy.
Hello, my name is Mohammed Arham Ahmed. I am 9 years old and I go to Brixton Primary School.
Giving from the heart is fulfilling. Encourage children to plan thoughtful gestures for the festival season. Promoting kindness without caution. Discuss the joy in selfless giving and the positive impact it has on others. Emphasize the generosity builds character and strengthens relationships.
My name is Katlano and I really love helping people. I plan on giving away clothes that don't fit me but are still in good condition for this festive season. How I usually feel when I help someone or after I give someone something, I usually feel good because I'm helping someone with something they need than I need it.
My name is Lebanzi Kangwane. I don't think I have anything specifically that I would like to do out of my goodwill. I just think if I want to do it, I will do it, no matter what it is. If it's doing the dishes, cleaning the house, helping you with your homework, whatever it is. If I want to do it, I will definitely help you. Festive seasons are around the corner and I'm absolutely excited because this means Christmas presents, this means Christmas clothes, this means so much more, especially food, of course. I have not been forced to give anything away from my parents, but at school we do have an organization that we help where basically we as the school have different children and they tell us their requirements. Some of them will say that they really need clothes because it's very cold during winter. Some of them will say they really need stationery because they can't do anything at school. And what we do as each of the classes of my school, we basically, out of our goodwill, we could maybe donate some money or we could bring whatever of the requirements that the person needs. But if you bring money, if we raise enough money, maybe your class teacher can go by the requirements. You can also bring something. Maybe you could bring some old clothes that you're not wearing anymore. But obviously the clothes can't have holes or anything like that because we're trying to make the children feel special and accepted and beautiful. But I think that children of all ages should give because Christmas is a time that you spend with your family. And unfortunately, some people don't have a family to spend Christmas with. So by you giving them that one small thing, whatever it can be, I think it'll make them feel really special, really loved. I feel very good when I give off something out of the goodness of my heart. I feel kind. I feel happy because I know that money is going to a good cause or whatever I'm giving is going to go to a good cause. So it just makes me feel at peace and it makes me feel very happy.
Giving out of your goodwill is like sprinkling kindness glitter everywhere. It's not just about the act of giving. It's a powerful force that can transform lives and create a positive ripple effect in the world. When we give willingly, without expecting anything in return, it's like painting the world with strokes of compassion. One of the incredible aspects of giving is the ability to connect people. It's like creating invisible threads that link hearts and build a sense of community. Whether it's helping a friend, supporting a cause, or simply offering a kind gesture, giving fosters a bond that goes beyond words. It's the language of empathy and understanding that unites us all. Moreover, giving is like a boomerang of good vibes. The joy and fulfillment we experience when we give willingly comes back to us in unexpected ways. It's not just about material gifts, it's the emotional richness that fills our hearts. It's like planting seeds of positivity that grow into a garden of happiness, both for the giver and the receiver. In a world where challenges and hardships exist, giving becomes a beacon of hope. It's like lighting a candle in the darkness, offering comfort and support to those in need, whether it's contributing to a charitable cause, volunteering time, or extending a helping hand. Giving out of goodwill is our way of being a beacon of positive change. Importantly, giving is not restricted to material possessions. It's also about sharing your time, skills, and even a genuine smile. Acts of kindness, no matter how small, have the power to create a difference. It's like being a silent ambassador of goodwill, contributing to a world that thrives on compassion and understanding. In essence, giving out on your goodwill is a reminder that we have the capacity to make a difference, no matter how big or small. So let's embrace the magic of giving, weaving a tapestry of kindness that brightens the world and warms the hearts of everyone it touches.
This program was brought to you by SABC Education. Enriching minds, enriching lives. Independent and impartial. This is SAFM News.
In our top stories, the two Parliament to recommend removal of two judges and firefighters battle a place at a Durban mall. This is SAFM News. A very good afternoon. I am Luyanda Maume. Parliament's Justice and Correctional Services Committee will recommend that judges John Hlophe and Nkola Mutata be impeached. Some MPs on the committee say they are satisfied with how the committee dealt with the matter. It will now recommend the removal of both judges to the National Assembly. In a written submission, Justice Mutata raised concern about the process being followed. However, ANC MP Qubutile Jantyi says the committee followed the necessary steps and is confident with how it handled the matter. The Eskom board says it has developed a plan to have an energy availability factor of at least 65% by the first quarter of next year. Chairperson of the board, Mteto Nyati, says there's an urgency to produce energy optimally to eliminate load shedding. Nyati was part of an Eskom delegation that briefed Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Public Enterprises on the Power Utilities annual report and financials for the 2022-23 financial year.
In March 2023, the ESCOM board approved the Generation Recovery Plan. This turnaround plan details a roadmap for achieving 65% of energy availability factor by March 2024, that's March next year, and 70% of energy availability factor by March 2025. Many such plans usually gather dust due to lack of implementation. It is for this reason that the board appointed Mr. Beki Ngumal, who is here with us as the Group Executive for Generation.
And Parliament's Powers and Privileges Committee has rejected an EFF letter from its legal team to find them not guilty. The letter, written by EFF leader Julius Malema on behalf of the party and 6 affected MPs, was read out by initiator Advocate Anton Kertz. The committee argued that the 6 MPs decided not to be part of the hearing when they walked out on Monday. In the letter, Malema says the video that was presented as part of the evidence for the hearing was not authenticated and their right to freedom of expression were trumped. Malema says there's no evidence that the Speaker, NCOP Chairperson or President Cyril Ramaphosa were threatened. The hearing took place in absentia with the committee deliberating on the sanctions to be meted out against the MPs. This is part of Malema's 14-page letter that was read out to the committee by Kertz.
Some of the members who assaulted EFF members carried guns on them. 29.2. No case was made out that the conduct in issue amounts to misconduct as per the charges. No case was made out about the threats experienced by the Speaker, the Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces and the President. No case was made out there had been a breach of the rules. And the conclusion in paragraph 30 from Mr. Malema is, we submit that the committee should find the EFF not guilty on the evidence presented and on the common cause facts. Signed, Julius Malema MP, and that's page 14.
Firefighters from the eThekwini Fire Department are still trying to damp down a fire that gutted parts of the Springfield Park China Mall in Durban. The fire broke out in the early hours of this morning. No fatalities or injuries have been reported, while the cause of the blaze is still unclear at this stage. Durban Fire Department Division Commander Bruce de Grier says the building remains off limits to the public. And finally, Kenya's Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua says the national government will not provide funds for flood response efforts as the country battles one of the worst floods in recent years. The announcement comes after the governor of Mombasa, one of the counties most impacted by the ongoing floods, disputed Gachagua's earlier claim that the government had sent counties 10 billion Kenyan shillings for flood response. Last week, flash floods killed at least 13 people in Mombasa and 3 neighboring counties. According to Oxfam, the ongoing heavy rains and flooding, which are due to the El Nino weather phenomenon, have killed 130 people across Ethiopia, Kenya and Somalia. Recapping your top story, Parliament's Justice and Correctional Services Committee will recommend that Judges John Hlophe and Nkola Motata be impeached. For SAFM News, I am Luyanda Maume. Headlines at 2:30.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 105.1 FM in Johannesburg.
Get your payments done with the utmost security and convenience when you purchase a TV license now. With our new secure payment systems with a one-time PIN OTP feature and the choice of receiving your OTP via SMS or email, you can ensure prompt and secure payments. The additional use of CAPTCHA will protect you against spam and automated data attractions. With TV licenses, you can enjoy watching all your favorite shows or movies that matter to you. Get yours today. Visit www.tvlic.co.za.
Second from the bottom, FC Köln confronts second from the top, Bayern München. The Billy Goats need a rapid plan to escape from the danger zone. Meanwhile, the Bavarians want to return to the summit. This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be. Catch the spectacular encounter between FC Köln and Bayern München this Friday, 24 November at 9:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga. Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
What would I do without your smart mouth? Drawing me in and you kicking me out. You've got my head spinning, no kidding. I can't pin you down. What's going on in that beautiful mind? I'm on your magical mystery ride, and I'm so dizzy, don't know what hit me, but I'll be alright. My head's underwater, but I'm breathing fine. You're crazy and I'm out of my mind, 'cause all of me loves all of you. Love your curves and all your edges, all your perfect imperfections. Give your all to me, I'll give my all to you. You're my end and my beginning. Even when I lose, I'm winning, 'cause I give you all of me, and you give me all of you. Oh, how many times do I have to tell you? Even when you're crying, you're beautiful too. The world is beating you down. I'm around through every mood. You're my downfall, you're my muse, my worst distraction, my rhythm and blues. I can't stop singing, it's ringing in my head for you. My head's underwater, but I'm breathing fine. You're crazy and I'm out of my mind, 'cause all of me loves all of you. Love your curves and all your edges, all your perfect imperfections. Give your all to me, I'll give my all to you. You're my end and my beginning. I give you all of me, and you give me all of you. Oh, give me all of you. Cards on the table, we're both showing hearts, risking it, although it's hard. 'Cause all of me loves all of you. Love your curves and all your edges, all your perfect imperfections. Give your all to me, I'll give my all to you. You're my end and my beginning. Even when I lose, I'm winning. 'Cause I give you all of me, and you give me all of you. I give you all of me, and you give me all.
So the funniest thing about this particular song is, if you follow Chrissy Teigen, Mrs. John Legend, if you follow Chrissy Teigen on social media, you know that she's an outspoken, carefree spirit, rather sassy, and she did one of these late night shows in the States. I can't remember which one it was. Recently, in fact, and they were asking her about this song. We know that when the song came out in 2013 from the Love in the Future album, it was really an ode to their love, an ode to their relationship. And the host asked her, how does she feel? And she goes, in typical Chrissy style, with a very sassy response, she was like, "Can we stop panning to me when he sings this song at a ceremony or at an event or wherever he's performing, where there are cameras and then they pan to me?" She's like, I don't blush anymore. It does nothing for me. In fact, can you just stop singing the song?" And a lot of women took to her social media saying that, they called her all kinds of names, saying that she's being ungrateful and she's, how dare she? And she's like, but imagine if you've had the same song sung to you for 10 years and people keep expecting you to react as though you are hearing it for the very first time. It is a bit of an expectation, right? It is the second hour of the show today. That was John Legend with All of Me, a beautiful song nonetheless. And now we are going to get into, I told you, my team decided that it's all about love today. We're going to get into a conversation around Black love, a dialogue for brothers and sisters titled Rejection and Recognition. This one is coming up, in fact, in just a matter of the next couple of days. So we'll get my guest, who is an activist, scholar, writer, mentor, and therapist, Dr. Baba Bantu, to tell us more. How are you doing, Dr. Baba?
I'm very well, thank you so much. A very good afternoon to you and to all the listeners.
Oh, my apologies. Gibuntu, not Bantu. Gibuntu.
That's right. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the time. I guess before we get into the conversation, and we're going to talk about Black Love, which is a dialogue concept that Ebukhosini Solutions have initiated since 2017. Maybe let's get a little bit of background and understanding on some of the work that you do as Ebukhosini Solutions.
Thank you so much. So my name is Baba Buntu. I'm director and founder of a company or an organization called Ebukhosini Solutions. We started in 2002. And I think since the beginning, we wanted to be a space where people who are looking for what used to be, and they used to be awkward questions, but I think they've become a little bit more easy to ask and discuss. Issues around identity, who are we, what does it mean to come with the history that we come with into the world? Why do we struggle with culture? Why do we struggle with our politics, poverty, many different things that we struggle with as African people? And we wanted to have a space for dialogue, but also a space of practice. So we are a company that specializes in African-centered education. We take people on learning journeys, understanding more about our history and our culture and our wisdom. But Black Love came into being because we also know that in addition to all the issues that I just lined up now, we also want to be loved, and we also want to find someone we can say, I'm in a loving relationship with you. So Black Love is not directly about romantic love. I mean, that's an aspect of love, but it's more about what is it with us and love as a people, loving each other, loving your sister, loving your brother, loving your parents, loving your children. And we're not saying that we don't know how to love, but we also know that the relation where we should experience love are not always easy. Sometimes they're heavy. Sometimes they are violent, and they are broken promises. And what does that mean specifically for us? So that we also have some information and some awareness with us when we step into the conversation about the romantic love. Because I feel we often start there, but this is to start a little bit further away from that before we get into that particular conversation.
Yeah. And in fact, as you lay the groundwork for the concept of Black love and sort of its genesis, I wonder if from your conversations and interactions, do we understand, or does it present itself as something nuanced, perhaps something almost unique to Blackness, the way that we understand, feel, and conduct ourselves in love?
Well, in a way it does, because you could ask, why put Black in front of it? Why can't we just discuss love? Isn't love just a human experience? And we're not necessarily negating that can be true, but we're also saying that what does love mean in the space of the experiences that many of us have? We struggle with language. We struggle with, like I listed some of the topics just now, and many of them have also made us think of and react to Blackness as a problem. Like Blackness has become an indication of sometimes poverty, sometimes lack of leadership, sometimes it's not really at the front stage of what we admire and what we think is excellent and what we think is unquestionably great. And that's important to kind of bring with us, especially since we are a continent that many years ago, for many, many generations, we lived what the world who came to study us looked up to and said, this is an incredible continent. These people know leadership, they know science, they know so many deep knowledges. And there was a time when we were a remarkable people, and we were seen as such. Now, often people come to Africa because they want to take pictures of animals and have the experience of flavor and colorful food and things like that. But aren't we more than that? And I think it's more than pronouncing it to other people. It's like can I call it a family conversation? Let us look at us. How do we experience us? And I think it's also linked to the conversation that today we have many women who have experienced Black men as violent, as disrespectful, and some have begun to say, I don't know if I want to be in a relationship with a Black man anymore. And we also have some Black men who said, I'm tired of sisters, they're nagging, they're looking for rich men. These are some of the things we talk about in the corners. What when we bring that to the front? Are there so many problems for us to love each other, love ourselves, and understand love? Or are we just making, so that's part of the conversation, are we just making something out of this, or is it really something that we need to have a conversation about?
I mean, I didn't want to fast forward to that, but you bring it up now, this sort of intersection of, the Black environment, quote unquote, and how it frames us in love, and how it ultimately presents itself in love for us. I think Black people world over probably have this in common, and it's often steering on the negative.
Absolutely. And I think that's exactly where the conversation begins, because some will feel a little bit uncomfortable. Why should I discuss my understanding of love in terms of my Blackness? Are they even related? And I think we are not looking for one answer or one particular experience. I think the room is very open. The only thing we do is that we want to have a guided conversation, meaning that when somebody says something, we want them to be protected and heard, and we don't want people to just say, but that's such a silly thing to say, and I'm so tired of hearing that. No, let's hear things for what they are. And rather than just dismissing it, say, but why do you say that? I hear a lot of men say that, and it sounds like an excuse. Is it? Like, now we can get deeper into some of the things we often throw out, but maybe do not feel we have enough time to really go into and understand. So you are right. There is a context in which many of us have experienced blackness as something negative. I mean, if you think about the apartheid experience, it's years and years and years, it's generations of experiencing blackness as violent, as hurtful, as upsetting, as marginalization, as dehumanization. And even if we can say we live in a time that is different now, many of us still live with the scars of the past. And maybe that also has something to do with how we also sometimes find love a problematic subject.
Very interesting course of discussions, because I think, until we understand everything that you've just laid out for us, it becomes very problematic how we arrive at a point of romantic love, right? Because the concept of love yourself first, or show yourself how you want to be loved. First, you need to understand those for yourself before you can then go and teach others how to love you. And if you're coming from a base that's already broken, fractured, and derailed, I wonder what has been some of the exchanges in as far as that is concerned in your settings.
No, thank you for lifting that up, because I think at the root of this really sits the importance of self-knowledge. And if we study our cultural wisdom, that is often where it begins. Like, know yourself, understand yourself, know where you come from, know your family tree, understand what your name means, understand why you were given that name. It really starts with that. And we live at a time where many of us may not have had the most beautiful experience when it comes to those base questions, like, why were you born? What family do you come from? Where you loved, where you cared for? And I think that's where we want to begin the conversation. So this year, we have had this conversation many times, and the frame is always Black love. But then we also want to frame a particular conversation for each, because, there's 1,000 things we could discuss. Here we have framed rejection and recognition. In what way do you feel you've been rejected, especially as a Black woman and as a Black man? And that could be a variety of ways. And then we want to look at that experience. How does that experience also impact on how you experience or do not experience love? Like trust, being able to communicate, feeling that you are heard, feeling that you are seen. Some of the things that are quite important in the romantic relationship, but you start to learn before you are inside of that relationship.
Yeah.
So that's really what we want, where we want to start the conversation. I think, one thing that I have seen really comes through in many of our dialogues is, because we also say to people, try to listen more than you speak. We're not saying people should hold their breath and they cannot talk, but also listen, because I think as men and women, sometimes we are very busy trying to explain our counterparts. As men, we say, no, I think, my sister, what you're trying to say is 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to speak for you. Maybe I don't have to speak for you. Maybe I can just listen a bit better and I don't have to always begin with saying, but I don't understand what you mean. Let me try to understand. And I think when we both do that, we get to a different place, because we both feel that, my counterpart is actually interested in understanding my experience of life.
Yeah.
And when you present that, you'll be actually quite surprised how many of us do not feel that that's a daily experience.
Baba, let's hold it there for a second. Take a quick break, and then we'll come back on the other side of this and continue our conversation.
The Northwest Provincial Legislature Committee on Premier, Finance, Cooperative Governance, Human Settlements and Traditional Affairs will conduct public hearings on the Division of Revenue Amendment Bill B3 2023 on the 24th of November 2023 at Tutwane Community Hall near Setlagoli in Nakamudiri Mulema District, Boskel Community Hall in Dr. Kenneth Kahunda District, Utlanang Community Hall near Christiana in Dr. Rufse Gamutsi Mompati District, and Mabudisa Community Hall near Muruleng in Bojanala District. All public hearings starts at 10 o'clock.
Have Have you ever noticed how unique the rugby ball is?
You should check out Head High.
The rise of junior rugby stars Mana and Tai.
Vince is not just their stepfather, he's their coach.
Catch the brothers' dream of the black jersey, Head High, every Sunday at 9 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com.
Rugby Drama Galore. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
We are in conversation with Dr. Baba Buntu, and he is an activist, scholar, writer, and a mentor. And we're talking about the upcoming dialogue with the theme between rejection and recognition as we interrogate Black love. And this is a dialogue for brothers and sisters to come together, not in the literal sibling sense, but in the sense of community, to come together in discussion around the things that preoccupy our mind, particularly as Black people. And as we were going into the break, Baba, you introduced us into this upcoming session's theme between rejection and recognition. And I think for me, this also, it speaks to, like we were saying, the brokenness within the African family and sort of the systemic things that we see around that, the violence, the disconnect between male and female, the lack of safety and security, and not just in the sense of safety and security as experiencing community, but in the sense of emotional safety and security, because I feel as if we talk at each other and we don't lead from a place of empathizing and listening to each other.
You are so right. And I wanted to comment on that in the sense of, so as Ebukosini, we have a number of programs. Two of those programs are called Shabaka and Kandaka. And those are two spaces specifically for brothers, for men, which is Shabaka, and for women called Kandaka. So we do a lot of work also with the two genders separate, because we also realize the importance of talking as men and talking as women. And I'm obviously in the men's group, and what we talk a lot about there is, why are we so often misunderstood? And why are many of us so busy being upset when we are framed by a narrative that we don't recognize? So for instance, as men, when we hear a woman saying, I'm tired of violent men, instead of listening to, like, what has been your experience, and in what way do you think I could play a supportive part? We want to shut it down and say that, but you can't just say all men are that. You see, that's the problem with you women. You think that I'm not even listening. I'm just busy trying to force my reality onto somebody who's saying, I'm being victimized in this world, and I'm tired of it. And that's an experience as a man I should be able to relate to, because I'm also tired of being victimized. I'm also tired of being stereotyped, being misused, being taken for granted, being exploited. I should be able to have a lot to talk about with a sister who says that, because there's an experience we also have in common about being oppressed. And I think that's where we need to begin having our dialogues, and that's why we call it a dialogue and not a conversation or a discussion, because we want to listen to each other. We want to listen to the colonial wound. And when I say colonial wound, some people think, so again, we are just going to take a responsibility away from us and say, because we come from colonialism and apartheid, that's the problem. I can't help that I'm this way. I can't help that I sometimes am aggressive and violent. And that's not what we're saying. We need to take responsibility for our actions. But we may also understand what has happened to us as a people, why there are certain particular problems or misalignments that seems to be a feature in many of our households and communities.
Very important questions, I think, that you are asking here by way of this movement. And as we wrap it up, I know that you've got an event coming up on Saturday. Is this a closed event, or if folks are listening right now and you've sparked their interest in coming to a safe space to have this exchange of dialogue and experience, can one still be a part of?
They can actually come through, and I'm going to give out a number so that people can find out about the directions. We are on a Black-owned farm, so that's also important, that we are actually in a space that is owned by us and that is also set up to be a safe and protected space for us. The number is 074 690-4012. That's 074-690-4012. This is in the Midvaal area south of Johannesburg on Saturday, the 25th of November at 11 a.m. It's a free admission session, but we have food on sale, we have a few articles on sale. So it's also us preparing ourselves for one of the harvest festivals that we celebrate at the end of the year called Kwanzaa.
Yeah.
So it's also building up to other events as we go.
Lovely stuff. Baba Buntu, thank you so much for the time. As you heard, you are more than welcome to register and come through for this free event being hosted in the Midvaal, and you can reserve your spot on 074-690-4012. It's 2:30. Ulianda standing by with the headline news. Then we're coming back on the other side of this, and I wonder, quickly, what's your approach to disciplining your friends, family, and acquaintances' children? Do you feel that you have the right and responsibility to discipline these kids? And I'll tell you why I'm asking. 0614104107 is our WhatsApp line.
Thank you, Bridget. In your headline, it's a criminal case has been opened against 4 grade 10 learners from Christian Divet Combined School in Divetzdorp in the Free State, who allegedly burnt 13 grade 8 boys with hot knives and spoons as part of an alleged hostel initiation last week. Chairperson of the governing body at the school, Ntamane, says a grade 12 learner reported the incident to the school. The ESCOM board says it has developed a plan to have an energy availability factor of at least 65% by the first quarter of next year. Chairperson of the board, Mteto Nyati, says there's an agency to produce energy optimally to eliminate load shedding. Patriotic Alliance President Gayton McKenzie says a two-state solution is the only remedy to the Israeli-Palestine conflict. He was briefing the media ahead of the party's 10th year celebration planned for Saturday at the Orlando Stadium. I'll have details on these and other stories at 3.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide, leading the conversation. If you're active on social media and love SAFM, we hope you'll take a moment to like or follow our SAFM page on Facebook and Twitter. These are the best places to find all the guest information, conversations, and stories you love from your favorite presenters, along with regular updates from SABC News. And don't forget, you can send your questions to feedback@safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversation.
The award-winning SAFM playwriting competition is back.
I remember a time when my grandmother, she would make sure that she never missed that story.
SAFM invites all writers to explore the medium of sound.
I mean, I remember Pipito, she remember all of those. It's like, what is this?
Yeah.
And it was fiction.
The theatre of the mind. And to create a 1-hour radio play in English, get writing now and submit your play before the 22nd of January 2024. For more information, visit safm.co.za. You are listening to The Full Circle.
It is indeed the Full Circle on this Wednesday afternoon. So honestly, what is your approach or response in as far as disciplining children that are around you, whether it's friends, family, acquaintances, children? One might even extend it to children that you don't know, but in a shared space. When you are at a gathering or at a restaurant, as a parent, are you okay with other people outside of yourself disciplining your kids, reprimanding your children? Are you okay with that? I know it can be a bit of a touchy subject matter, this one. 061-410-4107. That is our WhatsApp line for you to send through your voice notes and share with us your experiences. 086-000-2032. And I ask you this with reason, right? In as far as how are you with people reprimanding and disciplining your children? Do you give permission and allowance for such, or is it a complete no? It is a crossing of boundaries, no matter what the circumstances are, no matter who the person is. You don't care whether it's a sibling, whether it's your cousin, whether it's your auntie at the mgidi or the funeral. Where you do not touch or say anything to correct the behavior of my children. Because there are those people who are that extreme that it doesn't matter who you are in their lives, they do not give permission for you disciplining their kids. Where do you lie on this sort of barometer? And I ask you this because a restaurant in the US has added a 950 Rand surcharge to customers' bills if customers are unable to reprimand their ill-behaved children, right? Now, I'm of the belief, and I have a disclaimer here, I'm of the belief that I think there's a when and where. There are places that are suited for children and there are places that are not. For instance, the other day I went out for dinner, a beautiful, quaint restaurant here in Linden, wonderful chef, wonderful setting, wonderful ambiance. It was an evening dinner and it's a small, bespoke restaurant. And there was a toddler in the room. I could tell the family was celebrating some kind of occasion. Mom, aunt, uncle, grandmother. You know, it was a cute little family of like 8 people. And there was this toddler. But this toddler, firstly, it was past their bedtime. They were tired, fatigued, irritable, in a room filled with adults where they have to sit and be confined and behaved. And so they were rebelling against all of that. They were running around. They were trying to pull down the heaters. They were opening the door and trying to run out into the dead of night. Mom and dad were not enjoying their evening because now they have to take turns running after this child and catching this child before they go into the open flames of the kitchen. Waiters having to duck and dive with trays of wine glasses and wine bottles because here's this little 3-year-old zipping past them without warning. And now for me, I thought, fine dining, it does sound like a position of snobbery, but I feel like fine dining is not a place for children under a particular age. The experience is not nice for you as the parents. The experience is not nice for the diners that have come out and are looking nice and spending a lot of money. The experience is not nice for the staff because now they're having to navigate around your child. So I just thought in that setting, in that environment, I actually wanted to say something, but it was not my place to say anything. So I just had to snicker underneath my breath and hope and pray that they finish their dining experience and go home. And I wonder, for you, what is your take on that? Let's go to WhatsApp, 061-410-4107. That is our WhatsApp line.
Hi, Bridget. Under no circumstances would I allow anyone to discipline my kids. At the most, what they can do is at least bring it to my attention that, excuse me, sir, your child is being unruly and so forth. But, hey, what to my child? Never. Cannot happen.
Bridget, this thing of these new parents that don't want us to discipline their kids, their rude children, what do you do now? Because all these parents are all about gentle parenting and not shouting at the child or anything like that or scaring them. So how do we discipline now these rude children?
Listen, we've had so many conversations. You clearly listen to the show because we've had a few conversations around this notion of gentle parenting. And I don't know if gentle parenting equates to allowing your child to be ill-behaved and ill-disciplined. You know, that's not how I understand gentle parenting. It's not allowance for your child to be ill-disciplined, particularly in spaces where people are gathered. But yet again, our grandmothers would always tell you, how you let children behave in your home is how they're going to behave outside. Children will just display what you let them get away with. My cameraman in the studio, because we are streaming, he's nodding vigorously. But we all grew up with grandmothers going, because what you let them get away with inside the house is what they're going to magnify and amplify in an outside setting. 061-410-4107 is our WhatsApp line. As your WhatsApps come through, let's see if we can get to one or two of them. But really, how do you feel about it? I don't know. Well, Aldrin doesn't have children, but we'll ask him as well when he gets in here. And I'm not opposed to this idea of restaurants putting a surcharge on a customer's bill if your children are ill-behaved within the setting of a restaurant. I would even take it one step further, and there are some restaurants which say that children under a particular age cannot enter their establishment. It's even the reason why some people, when they have weddings, will say on the invite, no children allowed. Raise his hand. I was some people. There was only 2 children at my wedding, and they happened to be my niece and nephew. I don't know. 061-410-4107. That is our WhatsApp line. Oh, they are.
Ford is turning 100, and there's never been a better time to buy a brand new Ford. We're giving away 100 vouchers worth an amazing 50,000 Rand each, and the sensational grand prize of us paying for one lucky winner's Ford. It's the celebration of the century. Visit a Ford dealer, buy a new Ford, and win. T&Cs apply.
The Northwest Provincial Legislature Committee on Premier, Finance, Cooperative Governance, Human Settlements and Traditional Affairs will conduct public hearings on the Division of Revenue Amendment Bill B3 2023 on the 24th of November 2023 at Tutwane Community Hall near Setlagoli in Nakamuriri Mulema District, Boskuil Community Hall in Dr. Kenneth Kahunda District, Utlanang Community Hall near Christiana in Dr. Ruse Gamutsi Mompati District, and Mabudisa Community Hall near Muruleng in Bojanala District. All public hearings starts at 10 o'clock.
It all comes together with a great partnership.
Thank you for demonstrating that indeed you are proudly South African.
Africa Bora witnessed a great Rugby World Cup France 2023 because of your incredible support.
Great friends, great prize, and great sport.
Asibonge Kasalaga. Brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Arts, culture, and robust conversations with Bridget Masinga.
I almost want to play Welcome Back, Welcome Back.
I've been at work.
You've been at work.
Every single day. What do you mean? Oh, you missed me.
Yes,
you just say that, hey, I missed you.
I missed you.
Oh, hi. I missed you too.
What's coming up?
It's great to be back. It's great to be back. So coming up on the show this afternoon, we speak to Matila Koko, the former interim CEO of Eskom, and this is after the charges against, not the charges, but the case against him was struck off the roll alongside his co-accused. So he'll be joining us for that conversation and also the inconvenience of it all. And remember what the judge was saying is that how does the NPA bring a case to the court and enroll a case into the court when they have not been done with the investigations? And he was saying that essentially you're treating the court as if it's a warehouse, and it's not a warehouse. So we will be speaking to Matila Koko around that. And then also on the show this afternoon, speaking about the heat wave. That's one report that we also will be looking. Did you see how hot it is? So yesterday when we were leaving Mapungube, we were told that it is around 43 degrees.
What?
Yeah. 43 degrees. Can you imagine? Today is what, 33, 34 degrees?
Wow.
And listen, it's not as bad as that experience in Mapungube. So we're looking at that as well because it also speaks to this broader conversation around the adverse weather that we've been seeing over the past couple of days. And then, of course, the CPI figures came in from Stats SA, which went up slightly to 5.9%. And tomorrow, remember, we have the Reserve Bank Governor, the MPC, will be announcing their decision on the interest rate, considering that the CPI came in higher than what some economists have expected. Could we see a slight increase in the repo rate? We'll be speaking to David Roth about that.
Let's leave it on those bad news, Aldrin St. Pierre. To discipline or not to discipline, quickly, other people's children.
To discipline verbally. Don't do the physical thing. Yes, I think you can have a chat with Mtwana verbally, say, but what you're doing is wrong, and we can have a conversation. And then later on, if your parents are upset, then you say, but you brought your child into my space, and these are the rules in my space.
See, this is why I like him.
And see why I'm not a parent.
A disciplinarian. Let's go to WhatsApp and see what's on your thoughts.
Bridget, you're correct. In fact, I wanted to say that before I call WhatsApp voice message to say those people who say that children should be left alone, they are the spoiled brats themselves, and they are allowing the children to be the same. Children will behave exactly what they do at home when they're outside, and they show the character and personality of their household. You reflect your home, and that's exactly what they do. So they spoil their children. They're not surprised when the children do that, and that's why they will be angry when you reprimand their children. You know, in an African connotation, we will say it takes a village to raise the child, because the village, the elder, the uncles, the mother, the neighbor, everybody will reprimand this child, and the child will be afraid to do something that is unwanted in front of anybody else.
Hi Bridget, it's Luann from KZN. If a child's in my house and the parents aren't disciplining it, I will most definitely discipline it. There's nothing worse than kids running around a restaurant. My husband knows if there are kids at a restaurant, we have to sit on the other side because they will irritate me when they start running around. I worked in a restaurant, and I remember those poor waitresses having to duck and dive, not dropping anything on these kids' heads, because if they did, the restaurant would take the rap.
This thing of kids is a problem, man. It's a huge problem. I work as a teacher, and like sometimes we have an issue disciplining a child, and then a parent comes in and says, you must never talk to my child like that, and then you try to explain to them what their child did, and they still say, yeah, but still you shouldn't talk to my child like that. But the issue then becomes, how do we then engage with your child as normal other people? If we can't talk to a child a certain way, how do we engage with the child? The child is bound to argue with some people, is bound to disagree with some people, is bound to be rude somehow. All children do it. I don't care how good you think your child is. How are we supposed to interact with that child?
Hi, good afternoon. Great show here. On the topic, if you allow people to raise your child for you or scold your child for you, rather. Yes, it depends on the society where one grows. Like where I grew up in Nigeria, you allow people to, assist in raising your child by scolding them, correcting them, and the kids also grow in respecting and fearing older people in the society. This helps in raising the kids to become good boys and girls in the society and being responsible. Because there's a saying that 2 highs gives birth to a child, but 200 highs helps in raising that child to become more responsible, regardless of the gender. So I think it's something that should be adopted, that responsibly people should be able to moderately scold a child.
Hi, Bridget. I don't have a problem with children misbehaving because a lot of them are receptive, but the adults who are so arrogant and aggressive, that's my pet hate when I'm in a public space. Thanks, bye.
Listen, I think we're all we're not fuddy-duddies, we're just people that were raised in a particular way, all right? Since we all share a common sentiment. I got a tweet here to what the other voice note was talking about, the teacher. Actually, someone just alerted us on X that there's actually a video doing the rounds of a ballet teacher, an American ballet teacher, breaking down because of the appalling behavior that was exhibited by her class of 5-year-olds. And when she subsequently called a parent-teacher meeting to address this, the parents' response was the surprise in all of this, with the parents going, so what? Can you imagine? I don't know what would happen in that room, but amatafula up and down, I tell you. Let's take a quick break here, and then we come back and we wrap things up with Ntiki Mkhize.
It's time for the most anticipated event of the year, the Crown Gospel Music Awards, 26 November at FNB Stadium in a breathtaking dome marquee. So, dress up and be prepared to walk the golden carpet. La Lela, levels, tickets are at Ticket Pro and Spa. Check voting details on Crown social media pages. Hashtag a new season.
SFM invites you to our inaugural public lecture, delivered by the former Chief Justice, Mogoeng Mogoeng.
When something is in the heart, you really don't need to be checking as if it was something that was designed to facilitate your appointment. One of the things that I promised the nation was to make sure that transformation happens, with a view to ensuring that work is somewhat evenly distributed among whites, black people, and both black and white women. That is the one responsibility among many that I have pursued with everything within my heart.
The lecture will take place on the 29th of November 2023 at the SABC M1 Studios in Johannesburg. Secure your seat by emailing us at info@safm.co.za.
SAFM, leading the conversation.
The South African Reserve Bank has upgraded the security features on the banknotes to combat counterfeiting. Use the look, feel, and tilt method to authenticate your banknotes. Find the watermark of the Big Five for animals on each denomination. Tilt to see the security thread change color, and feel the raised print on Madiba's portrait. Visit www.resbank.co.za or download the SARB currency app. SA Reserve Bank, connecting us.
Living your best life on the Full Circle.
Wrapping things up with Ntiki Mkhize, founder of Mend Her, and we are identifying and understanding traumas as we lead up to the 16 days of activism and creating awareness and conversation around GBV, issues of domestic violence, and of course other forms of abuse levied against women and children. Good afternoon to you. How are you doing, Ntiki?
I'm great. Thanks, Bridget. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Thank you very much. All right, let's jump straight into it. You asked the first question, around what is trauma? And one may think it's a simple answer, but perhaps not so much.
No, it's not. And I really want to talk about this, one, because yes, we're leading up to 16 days of activism. But honestly, if you had to analyze South Africa as a country, we are a country that's living with a lot of trauma and living with a lot of unprocessed trauma as well. So if we think about trauma, it's experiencing stressful, frightening, or distressing events. And that can look different for different people depending on what it is that you're dealing with or what is happening in your life, and there's different types of trauma. So there is an acute trauma, which only happens once, so like a single incident that occurs. And then there's chronic trauma, which is a repeated or prolonged event. So women who are in domestic abusive relationships or have experienced domestic violence over and over again, or children who grow up in that kind of environment are dealing with chronic trauma. And then we have what is known as complex trauma, and that is exposure to various or multiple traumatic events, which can be very invasive or interpersonal in nature. So if you think about being a child that grows up in an abusive home, that's one layer of trauma. And then if you get sexually assaulted by a family member or someone in the community, that's another trauma. And then if you're growing up in poverty, that's another trauma. So those are three different traumatic experiences that now combine to make complex trauma. And then I think the last one is, something that a lot of us might experience as being part of somebody else's support system, which is secondary or vicarious trauma. And that is when you're dealing with somebody who's exposed to lots of trauma. And we see this a lot with people who are frontline caregivers, people who are part of someone's support system who's in the process of leaving an abusive relationship. And you might find that a system parent is taking on a lot of the secondary trauma that the primary person is experiencing.
And I think probably, a lot of us, when we sort of relate or engage with trauma, we think of trauma just from the first-hand perspective. But we never really think, as you said, the secondary trauma, the person within the support system, and also just some of the other sort of societal circumstances that we deal with that really ignite some kind of traumatic response.
Absolutely. And, it's really understanding the fact that trauma is an external experience that happens and oftentimes is uncontrolled, unpredicted, and you couldn't expect it even if you wanted to, so it's really your body shifting, or the dysregulation of your nervous system that's been set off balance, trying to process a particular experience that has happened. And oftentimes we find that then people are now living with post-traumatic stress from a particular trauma that they've experienced, but perhaps have not dealt with it. And I wanted to take some time to also go through, what does trauma actually look like? Because I know sometimes people hear about it, but somebody might think, I'm not in an abusive relationship, therefore I'm not dealing with trauma, and miss the fact that trauma has happened to us in many different ways, and we've just never taken the time to address it or to process it.
The processing it part, Nsiki, I think the processing part can be a challenge for most people.
Absolutely, right. So I think for a lot of people, one, as a society in general, we don't really speak about these events, right? So oftentimes when we experience trauma, so it's easy for somebody maybe to talk about a car accident they were in, because we kind of see that as being, it happens, it's normal. But we don't often have people talking about domestic issues that create trauma, right? So we now have a culture or society that doesn't have safe spaces for people to vocalize their experiences. And then in some instances, traumatic things that happen as a result of, for example, parents who did not have the skills or understand that the way that they were raised was traumatic, and now they're passing forward that particular trauma. So in some instances, raising it up might cause embarrassment for somebody, and therefore there's this tension of, we don't really want to talk about it, because by you saying you've been traumatized by this means that I have done wrong as a parent or a partner in the way that I've showed up for you, even though I was doing the best that I knew how to do at the time.
Yeah, and that's a difficult thing. The also understanding from that particular perspective that people, as you said, literally are showing up in the best way that they know how to at that particular time, because their response is also directly associated with whatever trauma you might be dealing with in that moment, but also whatever traumas that they bring into a situation from their own past.
Completely. And there's lots of layers to that. And, for anyone listening, I'd like for people to kind of reflect in terms of how they were raised and how the people in their immediate support system show up, and how you also show up as an individual. So it's very important to understand that not everybody responds the same way to the same traumatic event. So you and your siblings could have grown up in the same household, or you and a friend might be in the same kind of abusive relationship, but your response to how you deal with that trauma is different, right? So for some people, when you experience any kind of trauma, instantly what it does is dysregulate your body's nervous system, which is what allows you to be able to process and to deal with experiences and to help you remain calm. And some people's responses to trauma is flight. So something will happen and a person will run. And how this can show up is, if you're in the work environment or in a home environment and something happens that you identify as triggering a trauma experience that you've had before, instead of addressing that issue, you want to run away, you want to avoid it, you don't want to confront that particular situation. For other people, their response to trauma is to fight. So it could be a small thing and they can instantly have a very aggressive response back, because their nervous system is wired or is in a high tension of fighting back. And for some people, the trauma response is to freeze. And we sometimes see this where something traumatic or dangerous is happening and people don't run away. And people often say, well, why didn't you run? And it's not because the person didn't want to run or they didn't think to run. It's the fact that when you are experiencing trauma, it overrides your prefrontal cortex, where all the incredible executive thinking and function happens, and your primal system kicks into place. And if you are primarily wired to freeze, then that is what you're going to do. So those are the three that we often hear about. And the last one that I think is very important is fawning, is also trauma response. So people who flatter a lot, people who are overly complimentary. And I'm not saying people who are kind. It's okay to be kind. But if you know that you often deal with people who make you feel uncomfortable, or that your way of addressing a situation that is pushing against your boundaries is to flatter, then it's important that you understand that your trauma response is fawning. And this is, if you are dealing with an abuser and instead of calling them out on their behavior, you switch to, oh, you're so wonderful and thank you for this. And, so you have learned that calming down an environment and making sure that you are the least problematic person in a context is how you have survived trauma. And so that has become a response that you utilize in any situation that triggers those same kinds of responses or feelings in your body.
Yeah, we have to leave it there with the 4 Fs, flight, fawn, fright, or a fight. That is how we wrap it up this afternoon. From myself and my team, we thank you so much for choosing to be in conversation with us once again. We will see you tomorrow, Thursday, as we accelerate on the gears on the show. We get hotter and hotter with every day of the week. No need to run, Aldrin Cynthia. Aldrin Cynthia is coming through to bring you the news. And then, of course, on the other side of that, he kicks off Beyond the Headline. Inshallah, God willing, we get to do it again.
SAFM supports a litter-free South Africa. Play your part in keeping our surroundings and environment clean. SAFM, leading the conversation.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 105 FM in Mokopane.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 38462. Now that's good news.
Independent and impartial. This is SAFM News.
In your top stories at 3, a case opened against children for an alleged torture of schoolboys, and Parliament to recommend